The vintage cottage that my grandparents had bought by the lake after they conceived my father was where I spent most of my childhood. When I returned there in the month of April to stay indoors during the pandemic, I had returned home after 5 long years. On May 10th, I self employed myself with the job of cleaning the attic, for the rattling of wild rats had been beating my eardrums at night. It was when I came across some old books that my grandpa used to read to me in winters, and to ensure that I would survive the whole book with motivation, he always commenced every reading session with the lines, "Every story deserves an ending." But this story is about a letter I discovered buried under those stack of books, half torn and half burnt. It certainly did not belong to my grandparents, for neither of them wrote in cursive. And let's not get into the details of how horrible my parents hold pen, regardless of how eloquently they speak. On reading the letter, I learned it was written by a woman to a man addressed as Mon Ami. I found the content amusing, so I decided to share it with you. As I said, the letter was half torn, so it begins with the line, "So I learned from your wife that you're doing good. You know I'm happy for you even if the voices in your head does not say so. I know I have been combative, competitive and critical, but you have been no less than an aggressive, arrogant asshole. Perhaps that makes us even and gives us a legal choice to forgive each other without asking for forgiveness. Only yesterday, I saw a thought flying in the air, and when I got hold of it, it took me swaying in a garden seesaw in the July of 1946. My yellow silk skirt picked more sands by the rim than your blue jeans every time it touched the ground. But your face blossomed more than my frightened tight lips every time you would soar high. That is the only happy memory of our childhood. You went out on a stupid adventure, trying to find a lasting spell, to find peace at your heart. But you would have found it better if you had saved my hands and limbs from the tug of war between our obsolete parents at the moonlit front door. I want you to know, in case you were so reluctant to investigate, that the magnetic pull of my mother was stronger, or else Dad was merely imitating the sport because he left no marks on my arm. Nevertheless, congratulations. I learned you found your happiness in the swimming pools of hallucinogens and salvation under the headlights of highway marijuana. As you hit your head hard, you thought the angels were singing for you and blessing thy soul, when it was a doctor in white coat defibrillating your dying heart. In case you wondered how I'd know, she happens to be my friend. The girl with glasses and stained pink dress, whom you inferred to end up as a hotel waitress on my 7th birthday party. So while you were surfing in the high waves, I was drowning under them. Not the water, of course. You know I've always been keeping myself miles away from the shore. But I was trying to battle the emotional tides which Mon Ami peaked 10 times a day. I realized that credit, estates, stardom, and prestige do little to keep you in the air. Sooner or later, gravity will work on everyone who tries to escape reality, and in my case, it arrived in the form of fear, and Mon Ami, it was not the water. At first, I assumed fears have a way of jumping from one thing to another. It appeared as my dad. Why not? Then you, of course. my nagging neighbor, duh, his German Shepherd, my broken wristwatch. Not until I was paralyzed by the sirens of my heart that I realized it was I who was attaching fear onto everything. So the next thing I did was I robbed them of all the tags that borrowed free of tax. Why are human minds tempted by the extremities of delusions? We want to slide down the well till we miss to hit rock bottom, hang on the edge till our fingers bleed, and then we take pride in our stories and exaggerate in poetries. Why do we seek for an adventure outside when we can treasure hunt at home? Find thrill in the forbidden fruit when we can chew on grandma's stew? Why sway up and down in pain and pleasure when we can find peace in the middle? If your dead heart could be brought back to catch the normal rhythm, and if my sirens could be calmed in the dead of the night, I do not doubt that balancing the swaying piece of blank, hold on, or what is missing, there's a hole in the letter, would be anyway difficult. Then we shall live fearless of falling, because even if we fell, we'd just hit the ground. We're in the SeeSaw, right? That was not the end to the letter, but I had reached the burnt end. I was curious, unsettled, rebucked, and enthralled all at once, exactly like you. So I self-employed myself another quarantine task out of boredom. I hired myself as Sherlock to investigate further, but without Watson. And I think I was pretty smart enough to hire myself because I have the summary report prepared for you. I do not, however, disclose my procedures of investigation because a good detective keeps his investigative skills secret. I can only tell you that it was extensive. So, presumably, the healing bedridden man addressed in the letter was the owner who sold the vintage cottage to my grandfather. Due to confidential purposes, I would not mention his name. He used that money in his quest of finding meaning to life, but got sucked into the black hole of a wrong company. When I met him, I found him being nursed on a wheelchair in a moderately furnished home by his daughters. He was older than my grandpa, and our daughter was older than my mother. But his granddaughters were almost as equal age as mine, and I found the second daughter to be very pretty. Anyway, he had just underwent a successful cataract operation and now could see and examine me with crystal clarity. But I'm not sure he found me handsome enough to join ties with any one of our beautiful grandchildren. At least I can say one thing for sure, that he is a lucky man to have encountered good doctors in his life. The writer of the letter was his sister, who lives not far away from where he currently lives. The term mon ami was misleading for me to assume them as friends, but I learned they were both born few minutes apart, being a fraternal twin. The sister was the one to breathe life on earth first, and I wouldn't doubt that. By her robust personality, who had found it comfortable to live a life alone with her mates after having traveled half of the world. I didn't dare ask her personal questions, for she generally cursed 3 times in every sentence. But she did show me a photo frame of their childhood, where her brother and she could be seen successfully balancing the seesaw in mid-air. So I assumed the missing word early in the letter to be again. The seesaw still lurks in her garden. It was already broken in half, so as the child I couldn't exploit its purposes. My grandpa suspected to be my father's notoriety, but Dad doesn't want to accept that theory. broken or not, I don't look at the seesaw in the same way again. I cannot look at the seesaw the same way again. So that was the ending I devised for this story. For every story, yes, deserves an ending. I'm not sure if all story deserves a good ending though, but this one certainly did.